This is the Apostle Spotlight for Elder L. Tom Perry by Tricia Bundy, Dustin Boyd, and Whitney Priestley. Elder L. Tom Perry is currently 90 years old and was born on the 5th of August, 1922 in Logan, Utah to Leslie Thomas Perry and Nora Sohn Perry. Logan, Utah is where he was raised as a child. There were 6 children in his family and he was the oldest boy. Both mother and father involved the family in their work and in their callings. Work at home was also a family effort. They had a large yard, a cow, and a garden. His mother made it clear to him that milking a cow was not a job for girls. So even though all 3 of his sisters were older than him, he did all the milking. Even at a young age, Elder Perry understood the importance of church attendance. Young Tom was committed to perfect attendance at church. One Sunday he was so sick with tonsillitis that his parents decided the attendance record would have to be broken. All members of the family left for church except Tom and his mother. The family was surprised to see them enter the chapel only a few minutes after the meeting had started. Despite the fact that he was quite ill, he made every effort possible to be where he knew he was supposed to be. Elder Perry attended college for a year at Utah State University before he served his mission. He later graduated in business from Utah State University in 1949. Elder Perry was called to serve a mission in the Northern States Mission in 1942. It was at this time that he grew to truly love the Book of Mormon. He said, "I started facing the challenge of people asking me questions and I had to defend the Book of Mormon. Then I knew I had to know it and I started studying." After his mission, Elder Perry was drafted into the service. He elected to enter the Marine Corps. Elder Perry never did like to be second at anything. While in the Marines, he would always march to the front of the line and stay there. His corps was one of the first to enter Japan after the atomic bomb. He had compassion for the people and helped organize an effort to rebuild a Protestant chapel. 200 of the members of the congregation and the minister lined the railroad tracks to touch hands with them as the train went by when they left the area. His service in the Pacific became an extension of his mission. He said, "I was a better missionary in the military because I'd already had 2 years' experience in the mission field." He says, "During the next 2.5 years, I had double the baptisms in the Marine Corps than I'd had in the mission field. We had a great group of LDS fellows. The strength of the gospel made life in the service very enjoyable. I don't regret my service experience at all." After his mission and the 2.5 years in the Marine Corps, he returned to school at Utah State University, and it was during this time that he started dating his future wife, Virginia Lee. They were married in the Logan Temple on the 18th of July, 1947. They were married for 27 years. His wife, Virginia, passed away in December of 1974 from cancer. After his wife passed away, Elder Perry thought that he would be able to dive into his assignment, but he didn't find this to be the case. He said, "It was one of the least productive years of my life. There's no way that you can compensate for that balance of a companion aiding you in the assignment you're given. The combination of husband and wife working together is more than 1 and 1 makes 2. It grows in geometric proportions as she magnifies you and your assignment." Elder Perry cherished his wife and enjoyed the years that they had together. It was in April of 1976 that he was remarried to Barbara Dayton and is currently married to her today. Elder Perry says that his wife is a helpmeet and a half. One of the lessons that I learned from Elder Perry's example is the importance of family time. Elder Perry faithfully devoted Saturdays to his family due to an experience that he had. While working in New York City, the family looked for their dream home and found it 1.5-hour commute away from work. He came in the house one afternoon and said, "Well, I guess you'll have to choose between this home and me. If we live here, it will take all my extra time to commute back and forth." The children dejectedly looked at one another, and then, with only a moment's hesitation, one piped up and said, "We'll take the home, Dad. We probably won't see you anyway." He took this seriously and moved the family closer and devoted his Saturdays to his family. Elder Perry counsels, "I think that any father should let his family become involved and never isolate them from what he is doing. He should make the family a part of every calling and every business responsibility that comes to him. By so doing they feel closer and they feel they need to make contributions." Elder Perry worked in many retailing businesses that took his family to Idaho, California, New York, and Massachusetts. His first job was in Boise, Idaho, as an internal auditor. Shortly after that, he moved to Lewiston and became a controller for C.C. Anderson Company. It was in Boston that he became vice president of finance for Lechmere Sales Corporation and then treasurer for R.H. Stearns, just before he was called to be the assistant to the Council of the 12. He learned that church callings prepare you for your world experiences. He said, "I found the Lord's way was transferable to business. As I practiced the techniques taught to me in church service, I became more efficient in my business assignments. I soon found myself with more time for family, church, and business responsibilities." Elder Perry stayed strong in his Christian values. You'd find a quart of milk sitting out with all the other alcoholic beverages during social hours. He said, "I was teased a little about it, but was secretly admired for what I was doing." Before long there were 2 quarts of milk, and then 3. He goes on to say, "Set your standard of values and never compromise it. Have it grounded on the gospel. Don't be afraid to let people know what you believe in and what you live by." Elder Perry was made a general authority on the 11th of April, 1974. This picture was taken the day that he was sustained as a member of the Quorum of the 12. It is a picture of his family. Before he was called to this position, he was called to be an assistant to the Council of the 12 on the 6th of October, 1972. He had many other callings in the church. They included teacher for early morning seminary, served in 2 bishoprics, in a high council, and in 2 stake presidencies. He was a stake president in Boston, Massachusetts at the time his call came as a general authority. At a very young age, Elder Perry knew that he would have a calling in the leading councils of the church. When the family lived in Lewiston, Idaho, he was called to a bishopric and made a high priest by Elder Harold B. Lee. It was in this blessing that Elder Harold B. Lee said with prophetic insight that this young man would someday sit in the leading councils of the church. Elder Perry kept this information to himself. In the following story, Elder Perry teaches us that it is important to look around for others that are in need and serve them. Roberta Jensen sat on the airplane trying to feed her new baby and quiet her 3 other children, all under the age of 4. She was exhausted and embarrassed and alone. This visit home to Utah was intended to be a rest from the pressures of helping support her husband in dental school in Chicago, raising a young family, and struggling to make ends meet. She had started out physically and emotionally drained, and so far the trip had been anything but restful. The passenger across the aisle was a tall, cheerful man in a dark suit who looked familiar. When she spoke to him, he introduced himself as Elder L. Tom Perry. "An apostle right next to me," she thought. "I wonder if he can feel the turmoil I'm in and read the feelings of my heart." As the plane took off, all 4 children started crying. Roberta's embarrassment turned to panic. Suddenly, Elder Perry put away his briefcase and asked gently, "May I hold the baby?" During the rest of the trip, he cared for the baby, feeding him and rocking him to sleep, while the grateful mother calmed and fed the other children. When dinner was served, she reached for the baby, but Elder Perry, still smiling, said the baby was sleeping peacefully and there was no need to disturb him. This kind of service is very characteristic of Elder Perry. He is known for his enthusiastic behavior and continual demonstration of his Christian faith. Here is a list of some fun facts of L. Tom Perry. He's the tallest and the oldest apostle. Friends called him Stretch. As a teen, he played Van Ball, a modified form of volleyball, and led his team to an all-church title in 1940. He loved to fish, play horseshoes, and hike. As a kid, he had a paper route. He worked in department stores and later built his career out of it.
He and his son had hand signals for when he sat on the stand in church. When Elder Perry would slouch, his son would cover his eyes, and when he would talk too long or too loud, his son would cover his ears. His kids teased him for labeling his hangers for easy dressing. He is 6 feet 4 inches tall. He tossed out the first pitch on Mormon night at the Red Sox Fenway Park in 2004. The pitch was an inside strike. He was 81 years old. Through his example, Elder Perry taught perseverance. His favorite scripture story is of Joseph being sold into slavery and his perseverance in Egypt and how he overcame his trials. He prided himself on his perfect attendance in church. When he was a boy, he had tonsillitis, and his family went to go to church without him. They arrived at church, and minutes later, they were surprised to see him join them at church. This is how he shows us perseverance. Elder L. Tom Perry has shown through his own example that it is important to strive to become goodly parents. Even for those of us who aren't parents yet, it is extremely important for us to start building the habits now to become good example to our children one day. A consistently strong testimony doesn't happen overnight and takes time and work. Elder L. Tom Perry's words has shown me that this is important to start the change you want to be now. He has also taught me how important family is and how it can become our armor against the world today.